In my last video, Who are the 144,000 to be sealed, I covered these points. I understand the 144,000 to be pure blood Israelites by flesh and are identified by representing all the 12 tribes. They have yet to be born, they are future end-time Israelite saints, and the mixed multitude are other nations. They are specifically men and followers of the Messiah, and they are eunuch virgins just like the Messiah. They have never had sex with women and have lived a life of great piety towards the Most High. Now, what I didn't cover in that lesson is this topic here. Why is the tribe of Dan left out in Revelation 7? Now let's get a quick refresher of the history from Abraham to the 12 tribes.
Abraham had two sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Yahweh passed Abraham's covenant to Isaac. Isaac later had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, so Jacob received the covenant of his father Isaac and grandfather Abraham. Jacob was blessed. God appeared to Jacob and changed his name to Israel and told him to be fruitful and multiply, and the nation shall come from him, and the king shall come from his loins. And the land of Canaan that they were in should be given to his descendants. So be fruitful and multiply he did. Israel had 12 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Joseph, and Benjamin. And these sons are what we know to be the children of Israel.
So as we can see, the 12 tribes of Israel are 12 sons of Jacob, born to him by 4 women, Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, which is Rachel's handmaid, and Zilpah, which is Leah's handmaid. Their birth order is Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. Now when we look at Genesis chapters 29 and 30, you can get the birth of all the sons of Joseph, including Dinah, the only one daughter, in those chapters and their birth order. When we look into Genesis chapter 41 verse 50, we see this regarding Joseph. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for El, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for El hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So he has 2 sons. In Ezekiel 47, we get a good understanding of these 2 sons. Thus saith the Adonai El, this shall be the border whereby ye shall inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And Joseph shall have 2 portions. So he's getting these 2 portions because of his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Now, when we go to Numbers chapter 1, we get another listing of the 12 tribes. Now in this chapter, you'll see that there's no Levi and there's no Joseph. However, we see that Ephraim and Manasseh are there, and since Joseph had already passed away and he gets double portioned, they were included. Now you might ask yourself, well, why is Levi not mentioned in this list here in Numbers chapter 1? Well, let's get a read. Numbers 1. But the Levites, after the tribe of their fathers, were not numbered among them. For JAH had spoken unto Moses, saying, only thou shalt not number the tribe of Levi, neither take the sum of them among the children of Israel. So in this chapter, we can see how Levi is not mentioned, nor Joseph, yet we still have a number of 12. Now let's read Revelation chapter 7, verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Now for me, this is very, very important, the emphasis on all the tribes. Now the rest of the verses go on to list of the tribe of Judah were sealed, of Reuben were sealed, of the tribe of Gad were sealed. Verse 6, the tribe of Asher were sealed, the tribe of Naphtali were sealed, and we have the tribe of Manasseh were sealed. Verse 7, Simeon, Levi, and Issachar. And verse 8, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. So we can see here that Dan is left out and Manasseh is there. And there's no Ephraim as well. So when we take a look at this, we have all of these lists, these three lists. We can see again that Joseph was divided into Ephraim and Manasseh. There was no Levi, and of course for that reason, no Joseph. We see that Manasseh is carried over in Revelation chapter 7, but there's no Dan, and there's no Ephraim, yet they number 12. So again, we get back to the question, why is the tribe of Dan left out in Revelation chapter 7? Now there are various understandings. The most accepted understandings of why the tribe of Dan were left out, you'll see, are the following. The common reasoning is that both Dan and Ephraim were centers of idolatry in the northern kingdom of Israel. The 10 tribes were guilty of allowing Jeroboam to set up golden calves as gods to be worshipped on unholy feast days. One was set up in Bethel in the territory of Ephraim and another in Dan. Now when you look at these understandings of why Dan was left out, again, most people, if not all, focus on the idolatry of Dan. Now, it may seem reasonable that the omission of Dan and the addition of Manasseh as opposed to Ephraim was because of idolatry. However, and I know many can agree, a close examination of the scriptures doesn't give an explicit answer for their exclusion. So what do I believe after years of research on this topic? I believe that Dan should not have been left out and Manasseh was wrongly translated as being a part of this list here. And for one of the main reasons is that we see that Joseph is already there. And if Joseph is listed as the 12 tribes, as one of them, of which he is, then he covers Ephraim and Manasseh would never have to be there. So I believe that there's an error here in translation. Now, I know you might get caught up, right? But I just want to understand that the tribe of Dan shouldn't have been excluded and weren't more wicked than any of the other tribes of Israel. Let's get a read. Jeremiah 3. Hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot. And I said, after she had done all these things, Turn thou unto me, but she returned not. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it, and I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And yet for all this her treacherous sister Judah hath not turned unto me with her whole heart, but feignedly, saith JAH. And JAH said unto me, The backsliding Israel hath justified herself more than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words toward the north, and say, Return, thou backsliding Israel, saith JAH, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, saith JAH, and I will not keep anger forever. So what I get from these verses, this is of course referring to the divided tribes, the 10 tribes of Israel and the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin, and we see that all 10 tribes were very wicked. But not only that, it says that Judah was more wicked than Israel was, and that of course in Israel includes Dan. So although Dan does have a highlight of adultery and wickedness, all of the tribes have a highlight of adultery and wickedness also when you look at all of them. And we can see here that the Most High says that in verse 12 that he's merciful and he will not keep his anger forever. So I believe it's an error lost in the New Testament translation, or it's a stumbling block of doubt and confusion purposely put in. And this is what I'm saying. When we read Revelation chapter 7 verse 1, it says, of all the tribes of the children of Israel. And like I said, I believe Dan should be there, and there is a cause of mistranslation in this area. Now, before I go on further, I know what you might be saying, Brother Sean, how could you be there going in and trying to change the scriptures? You know, you're not supposed to add or take away from it. But I want to let you know that there are examples of errors in translation, omissions, and additions. I want to show you a good example of a lost in translation error in the scriptures. Matthew 27:3, it reads, "Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he had saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, What is that to us? See thou to that. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple, and departed, and went and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the silver pieces, and said, It is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And they took counsel, and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy, or Jeremiah the prophet, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for the potter's field, as JAH appointed me, or as the Lord, or Yah appointed me. Now when we look at this, who's prophesying, we can see here clearly it says it's Jeremy or Jeremiah. And when we go to our Strongs, we can clearly see that it is Jeremiah that was in the original Greek text, right? So I mean, everybody would agree that it is Jeremiah. Even when we go to various translations, we can see very clearly that everyone translates it as Jeremiah, because that's what it seems to be in the ancient manuscripts. However, I want you to take a look at something, again, regarding an error in translation. See, when we go to Matthew 27, as we just read, again it says Jeremy, and it has this prophecy. But the thing is, when you look through the book of Jeremiah, and if you look even through the book of Lamentations, which are both referring to Jeremiah, you cannot see any hint of this prophecy at all. But what I've found on my research is that it is found, but it's found in the book of Zechariah, not Jeremiah, and I'll give it a read. Zechariah chapter 11, verse 12. And I said unto them, If you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for me my price, 30 pieces of silver. And Jah said unto me, Cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was prized at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of Jah. So as we know, just like how Judas did, he cast the money in the temple of the Most High. That is the house of Jah. So we clearly can see that this prophecy spoken of in Matthew 27 is greatly fulfilled, almost word by word, in Zechariah 11. So the question is, why is the prophet Jeremiah listed there as giving this prophecy, and it's not? So again, here's a good example of a translation error. And if it was me, and I was to rewrite that scripture, I would have just put in Matthew 27, Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Zechariah the prophet. So I want you to understand that these things can happen, and I've seen them many times in the scriptures, in particular the King James Version, of which I do study from, and I also study from other ancient English as well as Hebrew texts as well. So that's an example. So I want to give some strong scriptural support that Dan should be listed in Revelation 7, outside of just my translation error that I have found. Genesis 49 reads, And Jacob called unto his sons, and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, all 12, and hark unto Israel your father. Now it goes to verse 16, it says about Dan, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. So we don't get no sense that Dan is left out in any particular way. Even in the following verses, people try to twist it up to make it seem like Dan is very wicked. It says, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder or a serpent in the path, that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. I have waited for thy salvation, O Jah. Verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, And this is it, that their father spake unto them and blessed them, every one according to his blessing he blessed them. So all of them are getting a blessing. This is not really a cursing at all. And even though it says Dan shall be like a serpent and bite the rider, that doesn't give any reason for us to exclude Dan from the 12 tribes at all. But let's continue. When we look at other lists of the 12 tribes of Israel in Genesis chapter 35, they have Dan mentioned there, and all of these lists are not in their order of birth. Exodus 1, we see Dan is still mentioned. 1 Chronicles 2, Dan is there. It's only when we get to Revelation 7 that we see Dan is replaced by Manasseh or Manasseh. So again, it says all the tribes of the children of Israel, and that should include Dan. And Manasseh, like I said before, would be included inside Joseph along with Ephraim. Now when we go to Exodus chapter 28 verse 29, it reads, And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, when he goeth into the holy place for memorial before JAH continually. Exodus 28 verse 21. And the stone shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12, according to their names, like the engravings of a signet. Every one with his name shall they be, according to the 12 tribes. Now we see in this breastplate, which is a great memorial before JAH continually, that all the 12 tribes are mentioned here, including Dan. There's no omission of Dan at all. James chapter 1. James, a servant of JAH and of the Adonai Jahoshua the Messiah, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. So even in the book of James, we see that the 12 tribes are mentioned there. There's no switching of, and it's talking about the original 12 tribes, not the ones with Ephraim and Manasseh being included in that count, but from Reuben right down to Benjamin. Acts 26 verse 6, it reads, And now I stand and am judged for the hope of the promise made of JAH unto our fathers, unto which promise our 12 tribes, instantly serving El day and night, hope to come. For which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews. So here we have Paul, Saul, Shaul, again, speaking about the 12 tribes. This includes the tribe of Dan. Now finally, I want to make a point here. Now when we look into the future, we could look in Revelation chapter 21 verse 12, where we see the heavenly city from JAH coming out of heaven. It reads, And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So what I see here, even in the future, in this city, we have 12 tribes names, and Dan is included. So I want to give a summary and conclusion. I understand that in Revelation chapter 7, Dan should have been included. Now we know about Joseph, of course, being split into Ephraim and Manasseh. We know that there was no Levi and there was no Ephraim in one of the lists. However, we can see that Joseph is mentioned and Dan should be there, and Manasseh should be excluded completely, right? No Manasseh, no Ephraim. So we'd have the 12 tribes of Israel the same way as it was in their birth order: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. And this is why I come to this understanding. So when I look at this thing here and these verses, I simply agree Revelation 7 should be including all the tribes of Israel, and that in verse 6 it should say the tribe of Dan and not Manasseh at all. So thanks for watching this lesson. I know it might be hard for you to understand this type of topic because you feel I'm changing the verses, but I do believe all the tribes of the children of Israel should be named, and that also includes Dan. As always, I want to give all praise and glory to JAH, Yah, El our Father, and his Son, Jahoshua the Messiah, the Nazarite that died for our sins, also known as Jesus of Nazareth, Yahshua, Yahawashi, Yeshua, Yeshaya, Yahusha, HaMashiach, the Christ, the Anointed.